So you've helped on a book about Common Core, which, people, again, on the right, or at least the grassroots right, have been objecting to that, at least in the headlines, going to hearings, or is that too simple a categorization?
It is actually across the spectrum, and that's the value of the book Common Ground on Common Core that I edited late last year and published. And it's really amazing. You've got people in this book who literally have identified all their lives as radical leftists. You've got social conservatives. You've got libertarians, objectivists. You've got this whole range of thought in this book, and yet they're all united in the idea that Common Core is a really, really dangerous, bad thing, and it needs to be stopped.
I've had left and right opponents on my shows before. Now, and again, the objection to Common Core, is essentially what?
Well, there are multiple objections, but one of the principal objections is that is standardized, centralized control of education. In Wisconsin, for example, and in most states, actually, most states are local control states, technically speaking, but we don't really have local control anymore because the amount of voice that the federal government and, frankly, at this point, corporations have in what our education system looks like and how it's controlled.
Corporations.
Absolutely. This is
manifest how?
Well, look, you and I have talked about public-private partnership in the past, Mitch, and this is exactly what Common Core is. This is corporations leveraging the force of government to create friendly policies or to leverage taxpayer dollars. Actually, in this case, it's both to create sort of a rigged game, policy-wise, something that the people really don't have any say in at all.
Okay, when we talk about Common Core academic standards, did emanate from Bill Gates started the whole. I mean, he was part of the.
He's huge
movement.
In this. There's no single donor,
there was a concern,
private donor larger than the Gates Foundation.
There were those in elite circles who were concerned about the lack of standards, right? Educational standards, which have become low. If you look at our math and science scores around the world, we're very down the list.
I can debunk that.
Oh, well, I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can. So we're doing okay against the Europeans.
Well, look, what has happened to a large extent, Mitch, is that test scores in other countries, the high test scores that you see in some of these other nations, they're cherry-picking who takes their tests. They are taking the cream of the crop. In the United States, we have a random array of kids who are taking these international tests, TIMSS, PISA, et cetera. And so, of course, if we're not cherry picking, if we're not doing the cream of the crop, our scores are not going to be as high.
Good.
But when you control for that, when you actually look at a population that would be similar to what these other countries are providing for taking these tests, the cream of the crop in the United States does just as well or better on these tests than anybody else.
Well, the impression, again, John Stossel in his big piece on education had the Belgium kids in just a class, I'm not sure what school it was, making fun of the American test. They thought it was so easy. So that's not correct.
Oh, well, look, I'm not saying that we're doing great across the board. What I'm saying is the cream of the crop.
All right, so you say local control. We should set the standards locally.
Yes.
And I say, after being a reporter for years and sitting through school board meetings, no one cares about school board meetings. Parents don't go. My attitude is there is no local control. Nobody cares unless they're going to close their school. Then they'll show up and have rallies and have signs and buses. But if the day in, day out grunt work, most parents would never go to a school board meeting, ever. So I'm not sure how much local control there is.
Well, part of the reason you have no local control, parents have disengaged. Almost everybody's disengaged. Taxpayers are disengaged. Why? Because there really isn't any say anymore. Most of these decisions are being made at the centralized level, at the federal and state levels. There really isn't a lot of decision-making power because of the amount of regulation.
On curriculum.
On curriculum, on a whole bunch of stuff, frankly. Really, when you look at school board meetings. What are most school board meetings now? It's people deciding, well, should we approve this building repair? It's not a lot that's really substantive to education. And certainly with Common Core, what you see is you've got very, very precise standards, it's embedded pedagogy in these standards. In other words, it's prescriptive. It's not just
English and
what
math.
kids need to know, it's how they need to know it. Yeah. So you're already starting to dictate curriculum there. When you then enforce that with assessments, you've got an enforcement mechanism, right? So when you pair the standards with an enforcement mechanism, you're going to drive curriculum, and that is what's happening. It is a closed loop.
So how is a more autonomous, local, controlled system working better than that? I mean, isn't Common Core the result of failure? Isn't that why we have this debate?
If you start to go back and look at the reforms in education, particularly over the last 30, 40 years, what you see is that the more centralized we've become, the more standardized we've become, the more we've plummeted, the worse things have gotten. So really what I would say is that the crises in education have been created by the reforms, and then another reform leaps in to solve, quote unquote, solve the problem. It's an endless cycle.
Well, my guess is we haven't done any better since we put in the Department of Education.
Oh, we have not done any better. We've done worse. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, your point, right? A feather in your cap.
Well, and just thinking about it logically, every kid is different, Mitch. Every kid is different. There is no standardized method for teaching all children. And if you are increasingly imposing a standardized, centralized model on all children and on all teachers, what you're doing is you're robbing the individual child of the ability to learn in the way that best suits that child. And you're robbing the teacher of the ability to tailor themselves and their lessons to individual children.
The schools will tell you that they still have control on what books they teach the class, and that ultimately the school has that freedom. To that, you say what? I mean, they say they're the ultimate arbiter.
Well, if you start to look at what's going on with Common Core, I mean, the amount of money and power behind this initiative is really pretty profound, Mitch. And you see all of these textbooks being aligned to the Common Core, to the tests, essentially, to the standards and to the tests. So, how free are these schools really to teach what they want when all of the curriculum that is now available through these textbooks and learning materials is aligned to this particular initiative? You can't get away from it.
Ultimately, you would rather have, the teachers just pick what books the kids learn?
Let's give teachers back some power to actually to decide what's going on in the classroom and to, again, tailor what they're doing to the particular individual students in their classroom.
In ninth grade, Mr. Grettencourt, we went through Candide, Les Miserables, To Kill a Mockingbird. I can't imagine anybody told him to do those books, but he probably decided to.
Right, there's a craft. There was a craft to the art of teaching that is being lost. Essentially, what's happening is that teachers are being made into proctors in their own classrooms, and that's
not good. I should call Mr. Grettencourt, get him on the phone, and say, "Well, somebody tell you to teach us those books, or we should read those books, or what happened?"
Yeah, I mean, as a matter of fact, I just heard. I'm trying to remember which state it was. Was it California or where? I think it might have been California, where they're actually starting to refer to teachers as standbys now.
Standbys?
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah, that's not good.
And you have me kind of intrigued. Now, Jeb Bush is being attacked on the right in the Republican Party because he is for Common Core. We'll ask about that, which is why you kind of like Rand Paul of all the choices, right?
Yeah, I keep my eye on all of them, but Rand's looking pretty good right now.
And this is the Mitch Henck Show.